What's good, everybody? It's the Cloud with Cab Show, NFL Week 8. Shout out to my Indianapolis Colts. They're due for a win. We took a heartbreak loss last weekend hosting the Cleveland Browns. Look, we got the New Orleans Saints coming in, and I'm looking at reality and saying, look, for the Colts, yes, it does look like we could win this game, but, I'm going to go Saints here at 2.5. I'm praying that my Indianapolis Colts do win, but I'm still going to take the Saints. Why? Because of Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr's that quarterback to change the game, change the dynamic of the flow of the whole game. So, for Derek Carr, what he's done in New Orleans for the little time he's had has really been impressive. I mean, 1,600 yards passing, 6 tutties, only 4 picks. And we look at Kamara, touchdown. Chris Olave, he's got a touchdown. Hopefully he's not still drunk from a couple nights ago. Everybody remembers that. He said, I play for the Saints. He's getting arrested. All this other jazz, right? But prayers up for Chris Olave. Hopefully overcomes that. It's just, mental immature mistake. You know what I'm saying? You're a professional athlete. You shouldn't be out and about. Shouldn't be drinking and driving. Shouldn't be doing that silly stuff. But I'm still going to go with the Saints. I think Minshew, he's a solid backup quarterback. A lot of people are saying Minshew's this, that. At the end of the day, Minshew's an average quarterback. He's not that quarterback to get you a championship. He's not that quarterback to run deep in the playoffs. So I think, to get you a Super Bowl. So I think for Minshew, it's okay. But we still need Anthony Richardson back for next year. It's just a sad year for the Colts. Yet again, I mean, it's the reality for the Colts. I'm just glad we signed Jonathan Taylor finally about a month ago. So shout out to JT. Zach Moss is questionable. Hopefully he can suit up. He's been really doing great. 4 tutties, 523 yards rushing. So the rush game for the Indianapolis Colts is great. I'm just saying we got to protect more. And really the defense for the Indianapolis Colts has been suspect. I mean, we gave up, 39 points last weekend? Like, that's just not good enough. So I think the Indianapolis Colts has got to make some adjustments. But I'm still going to go the New Orleans Saints. I think Derek Carr is going to line up the secondary. I really do. 43 is the over-under. That's tricky. I probably lean more towards the under. But I love the Saints at 2.5 over my Indianapolis Colts. We take another heartbreaking loss. Even though I want to see the Colts win, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints. And then we got the New Orleans Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins. Miami's 8.5-point favorites. This is a battle between two ex-Alabama quarterbacks, Mac Jones and Tua. But I'm definitely going Miami Dolphins here. I think Miami's going to run right through the New Orleans Patriots. Yes, the Patriots, the rivalry's great and all. But, Tua over 2,000 yards passing this season, 15 tutties and 6 picks. So I think Tua, me on Fantasy Squad, I'm doing okay right now. But I look for Tua to get back in that rhythm. Back at what started off the first month for the Miami Dolphins was just throwing the ball out and throwing no picks. If I'm Tua, I'm saying don't force it. You don't have to throw in double coverage all the time. Throw some silly passes. But I love Miami in this matchup. Moser, he's questionable with the ankle injury. Jalen Ramsey's come off the IR. That's huge news for the Miami Dolphins defensively. They need Ramsey back. Who knows when he's going to come back and actually play, but he's off the IR. That's huge news. Cannot wait. Tyreek Hill over 900 yards receiving and 7 tutties. The best receiver in the league. So for Miami, they had the best offense in the league. They had the best receiver in the league and one of the best corners in Jalen Ramsey in the league. So Miami Dolphins, the second half of this season is going to be huge for them. They just got to get in the playoffs, and really it's anybody's game this year in the NFL, especially for the Miami Dolphins. But the Patriots, you got Mac Jones, 7 tutties, 7 picks. It's not good enough. Yes, they got the upset victory last weekend, but they're going to get blown out here. I like the Miami Dolphins to run right through the New England Patriots. Take off Miami. I like the over in this matchup as well, but I love the Miami Dolphins. And then we got the New York Jets versus the New York Giants, a classic matchup, classic rivalry. Look, I'm going with the Jets here. They're 3-point favorites. Why am I going with the Jets? Well, they're coming off a bye week, and really right now the Jets are 3-3. So, that's kind of silly, right? We thought for sure the Jets would just go winless without Aaron Rodgers. But right now, Zach Wilson has taken some improvement steps where it's hey, they are nice. They really are. So shout to the Jets and really Zach Wilson over 1,000 yards passing. Then you got Breece Hall, 426 yards rushing and 2 tutties. Garrett Wilson, 369 yards receiving and 2 tutties. Like I said, I'm going with the Jets. They're coming off the bye week. And the Giants, Daniel Jones is out yet again with that neck injury. So, Tyrod Taylor's filling in. Saquon Barkley, a touchdown this year. Saquon signed that deal over the offseason. I'd love to see Saquon maybe go somewhere else this offseason. Go to a better team, a team that's going to lead you to the Super Bowl. Because right now, the New York Giants have been trashed ever since Eli Manning left. So, they haven't been relevant since. And really, it's sad. It's a sad story, but I'm going New York Jets. 35 is the over-under. I think it's going to go the over here. Why? Because I think the Jets and Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson, I think they're going to really throw the ball here. Yeah, I really do. They're going to obviously run it with Breece Hall, but that's going to open up the throwing game. It really is. They're going to target Breece Hall. That's why I think Zach Wilson's going to be doing great things tomorrow. So I definitely like the Jets over the trash New York Giants. And then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love the Jacksonville Jaguars in this matchup. Why? Because of Trevor Lawrence here. I think Trevor Lawrence is that quarterback to really be like, hey, this is what we're going to do here. They even surprised us last year when the Jacksonville Jaguars made the playoffs and beat the LA Chargers in the opening round of the playoffs. So I think for Jacksonville, man, they're a team to beat. Definitely in the AFC South. Trevor Lawrence over 1,600 yards passing, 8 tutties and 3 picks. ETN over 500 yards rushing and 7 tutties. Christian Kirk on my fantasy squad, 474 yards receiving and 3 tutties. I think it's going to be Jacksonville here. Even though Pittsburgh does play great at home, Mike Tomlin always has a great game playing at home, but I just think it's too much right here. I think TJ Watt's going to have to put pressure on Trevor Lawrence. That's the only shot they have. And I think, obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris has got to get going here. Only 300 yards rushing and 1 touchdown all season. That's not enough for Najee Harris, dude. The offensive line and Najee Harris has to take off here. This is the game to take off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kenny Pickett, 5 tutties, 4 picks, almost 1,300 yards passing. But overall, I think Jacksonville's the better team, and I'm going to bet on the better team. But the better team doesn't always win. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's just a lot of inconsistency this year. Some games they're great. Other games are just wow, they're definitely not a playoff team game. They're just not a playoff team. So I think I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is a tough matchup. I really do. I think it's a tough pick. I wouldn't even be surprised if Pittsburgh wins. But I'm definitely going with the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Pittsburgh Steelers. 40.5 is the over-under. That's another tricky one. Pittsburgh's offense really seemed to be struggling, even though George Pickens has been taken off. George Pickens is such an underrated receiver for Pittsburgh, where it's he's becoming their number one, and really George Pickens is a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Let that sink in. A lot of people might disagree, but I'm telling you, George Pickens has that it factor, 500 yards receiving and 2 tutties. I think this is going to be a nail-biter, but I like Jacksonville Jaguars by game-winning field goal in Pittsburgh. I cannot wait for that matchup. And then we got the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tennessee Titans. Look, Atlanta Falcons 2.5-point favorites. Ryan Tannehill's out with the injury. So I think Atlanta's going to stack the box and try to stop Derrick Henry. Make their quarterback beat you. Derrick Henry, 3 tutties this year. And really, there's some trade speculations going around that Derrick Henry is going to get traded. But right now, the Tennessee Titans are keeping Derrick Henry. And I think that's really smart. I mean, Derrick Henry, pound for pound, one of the best running backs consistently for the past 5 years in the NFL. So, Derrick Henry, a workhorse. DeAndre Hopkins, 376 yards receiving. But on this one, man, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go Atlanta here. I know I've been rolling with a lot of the favorites recently, but I think, Atlanta, this is their time to shine here. Desmond Ridder, supposed to 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, but I look for him to really take off the second half of the season here. Play a lot better than the first half. That's what you got to do if you're Desmond Ridder. So Drake London, 2 tutties this year. What a heck of a receiver. But I'm going to land in a close one in this matchup. 35 is the over-under. Probably more towards the under, but I like Atlanta over the Tennessee Titans in a close one. And then we got the Houston Texans versus the Carolina Panthers. Texans are 3.5-point favorites. C.J. Stroud been balling out. 1,660 yards passing, and 9 touchdowns and only 1 pick. I mean, that's crazy for C.J. Stroud, a rookie in the league. Over 1,600 yards passing, dude. That is crazy, man. Only 1 pick. Nico Collins, 3 touchdowns this year. But you know what? I'm going with the upset here. Carolina Panthers are going to win their first game all season at home tomorrow. You heard it from Cap. No Cap, dude. And I think it starts with Bryce Young. 6 touchdowns, 4 picks, almost 1,000 yards passing. I think him and Adam Thielen have a mojo. They have that dynamic duo right now. Thielen's been balling out over 500 yards receiving and 4 tutties. I think Carolina's going to pull this one out. I really do. I think Bryce Young, the matchup between the first round, the first overall pick, and the second overall pick. And I think Bryce Young's going to beat him here. I really do. I like the Carolina Panthers with the upset. 43 is the over-under. That's tricky. Probably more towards the under, but I like the Carolina Panthers. My upset pick all weekend over the Houston Texans. I can't wait for that matchup. And then we got the LA Rams versus the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are 7-point favorites here. Look, head coach Mike McCarthy, I think he's not a good coach. I really do. I think eventually they need to fire him. If the Dallas Cowboys want to win a Super Bowl like they did back in the 90s so long ago, even before even the phones were invented. No, I'm just kidding, but you get what I'm saying. I think Mike McCarthy, he's not a good coach. He's not. And it starts with him, and it doesn't even start with Dak. It starts with Mike McCarthy. I think he's a dud coach. I don't think he's good at all. You know, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go back-to-back upsets. I'm going to go LA Rams here. I think the Rams difference maker here is definitely Puka and Cooper Kupp. I think these two guys right here, if Matthew Stafford can convert on these third and longs, third and shorts to Puka and Cooper Kupp, I think the Rams win in Dallas. I really do. I think they're the X factor right here. If Puka and Cooper Kupp ball out like they normally do, I think they're going to win this matchup. I really do. I think the Cowboys, they have a great offense and a great defense, but I'm looking at Dak, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks this year. Tony Pollard, that lead back now, 370 yards rushing and 2 tutties. CeeDee Lamb, 475 yards receiving and a touchdown. I think for Dallas, you got to get CeeDee Lamb. He's their best guy on offense. Like, throw to him like 10 times a game. I don't know why they don't do that. And I'm looking at head coach Mike McCarthy and saying, why? You know, CeeDee Lamb's your best player on offense. Why don't you give him the ball 10 times a game? It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I think Mike McCarthy's not a good coach there. I think they need to fire him and start new in Dallas. I really do. But I like the Rams, man. I think Stafford is going to have a breakout game here. Almost 2,000 yards passing, 7 tutties and 6 picks. I think the Rams steal one here in Dallas. I really do. This is going to be a matchup where everybody wants to see, but I love the Rams and Cooper Kupp, the X factor here in Puka. I cannot wait. 45.5 is the over-under. I'd probably go with the over. Even though that sounds crazy, right, with Dallas' great defense and all this, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I could be completely wrong here, but I definitely think it's going to be a high-scoring game, so I like the Rams with the upset over the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go! I can't wait for that game. And then we got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. The line is even, a classic rivalry, classic matchup. I can't wait, man. But you know what? I'm going to go Minnesota here. What Minnesota's proven to me the past couple weeks with Kirk Cousins that, hey, we can get over the hump. We can get over adversity. We can get over Justin Jefferson getting hurt. Hopefully he'll be back towards the end of the year. But I think, Kirk Cousins over 2,000 yards passing with 16 tutties, 5 picks. Jordan Addison, who's on my fantasy squad, 400 yards receiving and 6 tutties. TJ Hockenson, 2 touchdowns, 390 yards receiving. I think Minnesota's really going to run through Green Bay. I really do. I think Jordan Love is a decent quarterback. He's still learning the system in Green Bay. 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. Romeo Doubs, 258 yards receiving and 4 tutties for Green Bay. But right now, I'm going to go Minnesota here. They're going into Green Bay. It's a classic rivalry. But overall, I think, Minnesota and Kirk Cousins, they're on a mission right now. This is a huge game for them. If they win this game, they are 4-4. They're right at 500 and looking really nice right now, even without Justin Jefferson. So I like Minnesota to steal one here in Green Bay, in Lambeau Field. I really do, man. I can't wait. 41.5 is the over-under. Probably lean more towards the under, but I like Minnesota. I like Kirk Cousins. What they have going right now in Minnesota, this is a huge game. I look for Addison, look for KJ Osborne, look for somebody to take off for Minnesota. I can't wait. I like Minnesota over the Green Bay Packers. And then we got the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Washington Commanders. This is another classic matchup, classic rivalry. Philadelphia 7-point favorites. Jalen Hurts this year, over 1,800 yards passing, 9 tutties, 8 picks. And we look at DeAndre Swift been balling out, over 500 yards rushing and 2 tutties. A.J. Brown has been going crazy, over 800 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. He's looking for a 6th straight game with 125 yards plus receiving, dude. He'll break the record, with Calvin Johnson, dude. I'm telling you, A.J. Brown is going insane here. And you don't think A.J. Brown knows this? This is the 6th game in a row to break a record. I think they throw to him a lot. I really do. And Devontae Smith, I'm looking for him to really bounce back, man. He's been quiet all year this year. I picked him up on fantasy and really hasn't done much. It's been sad, really, but I look for A.J. Brown to get in here. But I think this game is going to really come down to the wire. And Washington always seems to play the Philadelphia Eagles great. They just do. They just know each other. They're in the same division. They see each other twice a year, so they know that. Sam Howell, over 1,700 yards passing, 9 tutties, 7 picks. Brian Robinson Jr., 4 touchdowns, 325 yards rushing. I think this game is going to go close. I think the safer bet, since I think it's going to be close, is money line Philly. I'm going to go Philly, but I think money line. I think 7 is a little too much here. I think Washington Commanders with Sam Howell, they have something going on in there, but Jalen Hurts, I'm looking for a bounce-back game. They only have 1 L this year, and that was to the Jets. But, it was really a bad L. It really was, and I look for a bounce-back game. I look for Jalen Hurts ball out. I like Philly over the Washington Commanders. 43.5 is the over-under. Probably go with the under, but I like Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Commanders. And then we got the Cleveland Browns versus the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's 3.5-point favorites. Look, Deshaun Watson, he's out again. They gave him like $200 million, something crazy, like 100-something million guaranteed. So for Deshaun Watson, it's a little different lifestyle, right? Like sometimes you're like me, I'm like, I don't want to get hurt. Like I don't want to get hit with these guys. My bank account's so massive. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like he signed, a 5-year deal? So he's definitely looking like, I can't wait till the 5 years ends here so I can be done with this contract, run with the money, and leave. Then never return. That's what Deshaun's probably thinking, but he's out. Myles Garrett, the X factor for the Cleveland Browns on defense, really is a team in whole. Like Myles Garrett, he single-handedly won the game last weekend in Indy from the block kick, 2 sacks, a forced fumble. Like Myles Garrett, he's that it factor. And Seattle knows that, and Seattle's going to have to double Myles Garrett, or else it's going to be a long day for Geno Smith with 7 tutties, 4 picks for Geno. Kenneth Walker, 450 yards rushing and 6 tutties. DK Metcalf, 2 tutties. You got Tyler Lockett. I look for Seattle to win here. In Seattle, 3.5. I like that. I really do. I think without Deshaun Watson now, if Deshaun Watson was playing in the way Myles Garrett is playing and the Browns are playing, I would go with the Browns upset. But without Deshaun Watson, it's hard to bet on the Browns. So I'm definitely going Seattle at home. I look for Kenneth Walker to have a breakout game, over 100 yards rushing, a couple touchdowns, hopefully for fantasy-wise. But I definitely like Seattle over the Cleveland Browns. 37.5 is the over-under. That's really tricky. I mean, probably the over, really. Even though a lot of the experts are going with the under, I go with the over on that one. But I like Seattle to beat the Cleveland Browns in Seattle. And then we got the Baltimore Ravens in Arizona playing the Arizona Cardinals. Ravens are 9.5-point favorites. Look, I'm obviously going to go Ravens here. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what they're expecting. But Lamar Jackson, 8 touchdowns, 3 picks this year, 5 rushing touchdowns. Lamar, he's that guy. He really is. And his boy, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, he's got 5 tutties this year. So I look for, really the Ravens to run through Arizona. James Conner, he's out. I think he's out for the year. Arizona, arguably the worst team in the NFL. So I think the Ravens got to win here. I think Justin Tucker's going to have a big game, hit a couple field goals. But I definitely like the Ravens in Arizona. 44.5 is the over-under. Probably lean more towards the over, but I like Lamar and the Ravens. They're rolling right now. They're playing good. They're playing their best football right now. They're starting to hit it. We saw at home last weekend against the Detroit Lions. They ran right through Detroit. And it was like, wow, Detroit looked human there. They really did. So I love the Ravens. I like Lamar. I think Lamar's going to have another breakout game. So for fantasy-wise, definitely start Lamar Jackson. That'd be silly not to. But I like the Ravens to beat the Arizona Cardinals. And then we got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. Denver, they're on a 16-game losing streak to Kansas City. Kansas City owns them. Literally, they own them. And I'm going Kansas City here, even though they expect snow in Denver, which is crazy already. It's not even November yet, but that is insane. You got Mahomes over 2,000 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 6 picks. And then you got his boy Travis Kelce, 525 yards receiving and 4 tutties. Travis Kelce's balling on and off the field. Him and T Swift. Shout out to Taylor Swift one time for the one time. But I like Kansas City over Denver. I really do. Denver, they're going to get ran through. I really do. I think they're going to get ran through. Russell Wilson, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. Cortland Sutton, 5 touchdowns, 351 yards receiving. But overall, Kansas City, like I said, they're on a 16-game win streak against Denver. I'm going Kansas City. It'd be silly and ignorant to bet on Denver here. Denver's going to get ran through. They're going to get embarrassed. And it's going to be all Kansas City here. Watch some fluke stuff happen where Denver upsets them. I don't see it happening, though. I just don't. I like Kansas City and Mahomes to run right through Denver. In Denver, 46 is the over-under. I mean, with Kansas City, you always typically go with the overs. You just do. I mean, why? Because you got Mahomes there. Like, single-handedly, Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL. That's who you have right now. That's who I'm going with. So I like Kansas City to run right through the Denver Broncos. And then we got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the San Francisco 49ers. This is probably the best matchup all weekend. San Francisco's 5-point favorites. They're coming off an L to the Minnesota Vikings. Brock Purdy was banged up. He is supposed to play here. He was on a concussion protocol. He's got over 1,600 yards passing, 11 tutties, 3 picks. Christian McCaffrey, 8 touchdowns, looking to keep that streak going of touchdowns. Since last year in December, it's crazy. McCaffrey's definitely going to get in 100%. Then you got Joe Burrow, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. Jamar Chase, his boy, 3 touchdowns, 556 yards receiving. And I think for the Cincinnati Bengals overall, they're lucky to be right at 500. The way they started their season, it looked like they could only have like 1 or 2 wins right now. But to be 3-3 right now is a blessing in disguise. And I think right now, the Bengals, the way they're playing, the San Francisco 49ers are not clicking right now. They don't have Deebo Samuel. They're not throwing to George Kittle, which I don't understand why. But I think overall right now, this is a game where Cincinnati can steal it here. Yes, McCaffrey's going to do his thing. We know that. We all know that. But I think right now I'm going to go the upset. I'm going to go Cincinnati Bengals in San Francisco. This is a huge game for Cincy here. This is a game where Cincinnati can play their best football. They haven't played their best football all year. Why not in week 8 right now if you're Cincinnati? If you're Joe Burrow right now, you should be at 100%. This should be the game where you guys should take over here. Put up some points. 43.5 is the over-under. Definitely go with the over. I think both offenses can score heavy here, but I like the Bengals here. I think Joe Burrow's going to take over this game. I really do. McCaffrey, like I said, he's going to get that touchdown. Bet on it for sure. But I like the Cincinnati Bengals with the upset in San Francisco. This is probably the best matchup all weekend. I can't wait. And then we got the Sunday night football game, the Chicago Bears at LA Chargers. The Chargers are 8.5-point favorites, and you know what? I'm going to go Chargers here at 8.5. Justin Fields is out. Bears, all they have offensively is DJ Moore, 636 yards receiving and 5 tutties. But I'm going Chargers here. I think Justin Herbert, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks, almost 1,600 yards passing. But I just think for Justin Herbert, a lot of people are hyping this guy up. He's 0-1 in the playoffs. They give him a bunch of money. And right now, the Chargers are below 500. So it's like, how good is Justin Herbert really? It's like, you guys got to take over right now. This is the game right now. I like the Chargers. Keenan Allen, 4 tutties this year. I love the Chargers to run right through the Bears. It's not really saying much. Justin Fields is out. The Bears, one of the worst teams in the NFL. It's not really saying that much. So the Chargers should win this game. So 8.5, and I expect them to really take off here. I expect Justin Herbert to play a flawless game with 0 picks here. So I like the Chargers over the Chicago Bears on the trashy Sunday night football game. Really, because it's the Bears. The Bears are trash. And then we got the Monday night football game, the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Detroit is 8.5 favorites. Probably go 8.5 to 9 come game time on Monday night. But I like Detroit Lions here. We look at the Detroit Lions and say, yes, they took a bad L last weekend, but right now Detroit could go 6-2, and after this game, if they go 6-2, they go into their bye week. So that's huge for the Detroit Lions, man. Going to your bye week 6-2 after a Monday Night Football game, that's huge. So I like the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. I like Jared Goff. Over 1,900 yards passing, 11 tutties and 4 picks. Even though David Montgomery is out with a rib injury, that's their main back there. So they're looking to get him back healthy. St. Brown, 557 yards receiving and 3 tutties. St. Brown, one of the best receivers in the league. I look for Detroit to take over this game. And I'm looking at the Raiders and Jimmy G, 7 tutties, 8 picks. He's coming back. Josh Jacobs, 2 touchdowns this year. And really a quiet year for Josh Jacobs so far. It's disappointing. I picked Josh Jacobs, I believe, in the second round of my fantasy draft, where it was like, hey, that's a solid pickup. What he did last year was great. But this year, on a different team, not the same team as it was last year, different quarterback, different style, it's just not as good anymore. Devontae Adams, 3 tutties this year, 528 yards receiving. I think it's going to be a close game in the first half, but I expect the Detroit Lions to run away with this game. Like I said, Detroit right now is 5-2. They win this game, they're 6-2, and they go into their bye week. So that's huge for the Detroit Lions. That's what you want. So I'm going Detroit Lions. 46 is the over-under. It's tough on Monday night. Probably lean more towards the under, but I think the Detroit Lions are going to run right through them. I really do. So I like the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. But what a week 8 for the NFL, man. It's really some great, interesting games this weekend. Minnesota, Green Bay, a 50-50 game. I'm going Minnesota. You got the Rams. That's my upset pick over the Cowboys. I cannot wait. And I hope and I pray to God that the Indianapolis Colts get it done at home against the New Orleans Saints. But I think reality hits us again. Derek Carr's a better quarterback. I'm going with the Saints. I can't wait for these matchups. It's the NFL. It's the Clouded with Cab show. Let's go!